NBC News asks, what is a moderate Democrat anyway? The presidential field is tacking hard to the left, leaving some to wonder if there's room for a different approach and what it would look like. I saw this article, and I thought it would be interesting to read through because they got a big old picture of Beto, and they talk about the progressives and the policies being pushed forward. And I want to make some clarifications, because I feel like I've done a pretty poor job of talking about how I actually feel about certain issues. Typically, when I refer to the far left, I'm referring to the regressive left, and I'm trying to do better to directly address that so I can draw a distinction between the far left as a whole, which does include the regressive left, and the far left like Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, who are actually not that bad. Now, I'm not as big a fan of Bernie as I used to be, and when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard, full disclosure, I made a video about it. I have donated to her, but mostly because she's anti-war, and that's the only thing I'm really concerned about. So when I look at Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, they have some far left policy ideas. Andrew Yang has a lot of moderate policy ideas, but universal basic income is pretty far left. And I want to draw that distinction because Tulsi Gabbard went on Twitter and defended free speech even for those we disagree with, and I was like, clap, 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 here. I don't want to clap into the microphone. No, I really respect that. I absolutely disagree with everybody on policy, the progressive Democrats as well as conservatives, but there are a few things on the Democratic side that I like. When it comes to Ilhan Omar, when it comes to Rashida Tlaib, when it comes to Ocasio-Cortez, they're regressive identitarians. I want to make sure I can say that specifically. The craziest thing is that it's basically ethno-socialism, right? Which is basically what the Nazis were to a certain extent. They weren't entirely socialist. They called themselves that, but that's not entirely accurate. But the issue is, these people like Ocasio-Cortez and the Green New Deal. What was in the Green New Deal on page 2? Ethno-policy, right? Policy based on ethnicity and race. You have people who want a socialist system, and they want one of the key defining factors to be the race and ethnicity of individuals. It's ethno-socialism. Like, that's like, I'm going to say it, it's like a Nazi. It's like, I get it. It's stupid to point the finger and call them Nazis. But if anybody is advocating for redistribution of wealth and ethnic policies, it's the new regressive Democrats. I don't want to call them progressive. But let's see what NBC News has to say about what is a moderate. And I think maybe this might be an attempt to move the Overton window. I don't even think it can go any more to the left, but sure. Progressive Democrats are driving the conversation early in the 2020 race, with the candidates looking to drive up enthusiasm with left-leaning grassroots activists and donors. But some in the party believe the early frontrunners have misjudged the party's base, leaving an opening for a candidate to offer a centrist correction, especially when you consider the AFL-CIO has denounced the Green New Deal. Anybody endorsing that is out of their mind if they think they're going to win without an endorsement from the AFL-CIO. Okay, maybe you don't need an AFL-CIO endorsement, but trust me, when they send out their newsletter to all their members saying, do not vote for these candidates, what do you think they're going to do? My God, could you imagine if the AFL-CIO has to spend money to support Republicans? That will be mind-blowing if that happens. Some look to a potential run by Vice President Joe Biden or the newly announced former Rep. Beto O'Rourke as a possible vehicle for middle-of-the-road campaigns. They point to polls that suggest rank-and-file voters share their concerns the party is moving too far to the left. A survey by Gallup in December found 54% of Democratic respondents want a more moderate party. Hear, hear. I would say there's an energized moderate majority in the Democratic Party, Jim Kessler, senior vice president for policy at centrist think tank Third Way, told NBC News. They're quiet compared to the activist voices on the left, and there's a difference between volume in decibels and volume in numbers. But often lost in the discussion is what the term moderate Democrat even means at a time when many of the party's old ideological divides are collapsing and unexpected new ones are popping up. And there's still no declared presidential contender who has fully defined what the centrist alternative looks like for 2020. So what makes a moderate Democrat? Anti-identitarian for one, rejecting absurd psychotic policies like the Green New Deal, which I will clarify, the idea of the government investing in new technology, good. The Green New Deal, as Ocasio-Cortez has drafted it, absolutely insane and should be thrown out the window. The single biggest split might be how a Democratic candidate envisions working with the other side as president. Hear, hear. Whether that's Republicans or businesses and interest groups considered hostile to progressive causes. On the one side, Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren lead the populist pack with speeches that cast self-interested elites and their political allies as an oppressive force that must be defeated in order to accomplish real change. And both of them have tried playing the identity politics game. It's really funny. I love this meme where they're like, let's talk about white privilege, and you have Robert O'Rourke trying to act like he's Mexican and Elizabeth Warren trying to claim she's Native American. They're doing everything they can to distance themselves from being white. It's going to be a pitfall of the embracing of identitarianism by the new regressive leftists, whatever. I don't see them getting enough support because we've already seen feminists and other activists say, I'm not going to vote for a white person or I'm not going to vote for a man. That means the base is fractured. Let me tell you a story, okay? This is what was relayed to me using Egypt as an example of why first past the post voting is dangerous. If you're not familiar, first past the post means whoever gets the most vote wins and everyone gets one vote. People have often advocated for rank choice voting, meaning you rank your choice, and then if your first choice loses, your vote goes to the second, and so on. And that's a more representative way of doing things. But I'll tell you what's going to happen with the Democrats. You're going to have, you have 20 contenders who all mostly agree. They all mostly agree. They do. They're Democrats. They mostly agree. And people are going to pick and choose who they want, and they're going to get into arguments with each other. You're going to have, out of these 20 candidates, everyone get 5% of the vote, right? One person gets 4, another person gets 6. That means one of these primary candidates with only 6% of the vote will be chosen as the Democratic nominee, leaving 94% of people upset that their candidate didn't win, and then they will oppose that candidate. So what's going to happen is, look at Bernie or bust. Hillary Clinton was the nominee. Everyone said just vote for her, don't let Trump win. And 12 to 18% of Bernie voters said no and voted for Trump. Because screw you, apparently. So I think this is going to be a huge pitfall for the Democrats because they have too many contenders and because they're absolutely fractured, as they just mentioned. Let's read on. They say, this is on the other side, candidates are testing out a more moderate message of cooperation. This is a distinguishing approach for O'Rourke, who tacitly backed a Texas House Republican's re-election in 2018 and earned endorsements on Thursday from 2 moderate House Democrats. My sense is, following some success that I had in Congress and working with Republicans to actually get things signed into law, including both President Obama and President Trump's administrations, that I may have an ability to work with people who think differently than I do, come to a different conclusion that I've come to on a given issue, and yet find enough common ground to do something better than what we have right now, O'Rourke said in a Vanity Fair cover story, profile published last week. Bravo, here, I agree with that. You could look at criminal justice reform that Trump pulled off. Everybody should be happy about that. Trump worked across the aisle to enact some sweeping criminal justice reform that is everybody thought was awesome. That's fantastic. That's what happens when two sides can come together and realize not everyone's going to get what they want. That's absurd. But we need to compromise and figure out where we can live peacefully together. Like where's that line where we can come to and shake hands and say, this is the best we can do. So I do appreciate Beto coming out and say that. Unfortunately for Beto, his website is basically just a sweaty picture of him and he's selling t-shirts. So maybe put some policy positions on your website so we know what the hell's going on. Former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper, a self-styled extreme moderate, has played up his willingness to sit down with oil and gas company executives to hammer out compromise on environmental policy. And that's going to win him favors with the labor unions who are going to say, vote for this guy. Doesn't mean he'll win. The contrasting views on how to deal with opponents are already starting to come into conflict, even with formerly boilerplate nods to the other party now a topic of fierce debate. After Biden praised his successor, Vice President Mike Pence, as a decent guy, former New York gubernatorial candidate and actress Cynthia Nixon called him out on Twitter for hollow civility that glossed over Pence's record on gay rights. Biden retracted his comments, but has since made clear that he plans on emphasizing bipartisanship should he run. In a speech to the Delaware Democratic Party on Saturday night, he delivered an impassioned defense of finding consensus in politics, even as he boasted he had the most progressive record of anybody who would run. Let me point out, Cynthia Nixon lost. They didn't want her. They chose Andrew Cuomo, the moderate. Why, Joe Biden, would you bend over backwards to someone that no one liked? Speak to your constituents. Speak to the people who said no to the regressives and yes to the moderates. It's mind-blowing. It really is. Government-run healthcare. When it comes to economic policy, Democrats are mostly running on the same broad ideas, taxing the rich more to pay for investments in areas like healthcare. That's insane, and it won't work. So here's the thing, because I'm gonna wrap up here and make a few points about the far left and what's important to me. Taxing the rich, as Andrew Cuomo said, bad idea. They flee. And in today's day and age, technology makes it extremely easy for people to move their wealth to foreign countries. Yes, they still have to pay U.S. taxes, but I know a lot of rich people who just go to St. Kitts and Nevis. It's an island, like in the Bahamas or something. I don't know exactly where it is. It's like near Cuba, maybe. So you go there, they pay a fee, and now they're a citizen, and they renounce their U.S. citizenship, and then they don't pay taxes anymore. So long as it's easy to travel around the world and hide money, they're going to do it. You can't just say you're going to tax them. They will find loopholes. So it's a challenge. It is. We need to raise taxes, but technology has made it very, very difficult. Now, there's one, when it comes to domestic policy, I can say that. I can. But ultimately, what I think is going to happen is if we get in someone like, say, Tulsi or Andrew Yang, the people I've actually supported, I do not believe that they will actually be able to make those changes. And I believe the Republicans are going to push back heavily. And I believe in response to the election of certain individuals that are on the left, you're going to see you'll probably see the Republicans take more seats in the House and reclaim a majority. And one of the things I think is really important for this country is a balance between the left and the right. That the conservatives kind of hold the liberals in check while the liberals push really, really hard on progressive policy. It's kind of like a natural cultural check and balance. The reason I find the regressive left, Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and those people worrisome is that they're pushing for race-based policy. And we should never allow that at all. It's one thing if someone says Medicare for all. I'm like, okay, yeah, it probably can't happen. You can campaign on it. That's fine. But there's just you're not going to find the money for it. So good luck. It won't work. So I'm not super concerned about that. So when Tulsi Gabbard says on Colbert that, the CIA is funding these groups and we shouldn't be going overseas and blowing stuff up, I'm like, here. When she goes on Twitter and says we must defend free speech even for people we disagree with, here. And apparently she's been watching some Trump supporter live streams, and I'm like, I think she's got some positions that I don't agree with, but I also don't think it could actually happen. I got to admit, I know there's a lot of countries that have universal health care, and I know there's a huge debate about it, but people often try and claim the U.S. could do the same thing these other countries do, and the U.S. has 300 plus million people, so I'm not entirely convinced. What I mean by that is you can put someone in office who believes in it, but the president, they're not going to do anything about it. You know what I mean? So you get a president who believes in Medicare for all, that you don't get Medicare for all. So it's not how the society works. Trump said he wanted a wall, right? And look what happened. They pushed back. So I think it's good to have a balance. Ultimately, what I'm hoping for with Yang and Tulsi is just getting on the debate stage and having them express their ideas, because ultimately I think the marketplace of ideas is paramount. And so at the very least, I hope if you disagree with my choice in making those donations, you at least recognize it's good to hear them out. If you think their ideas are bad, then it's really good that other people hear their ideas too. And that's how I feel. I just want to hear people express more ideas and mix things up. So we'll leave it there. I'm going to rant. Stick around. I got one more video coming up in just a few minutes.